I'm Kippen, and my student number is T00698764, and I'm here with my clinical mentor, Dr. Jones. We're working here with Scout today. Scout has just been spayed. She's just waking up from her spay. We'd like to do an ECG on her. Now, she has not been fully reversed, so it's important to remember that the drugs that we've given her today, they are going to be changing her heart rate a little bit. They're going to be lowering her heart rate, so we're not going to be getting the complete accurate read that we would have if she was an awake dog, because unfortunately she has been put under anesthetic, and she also has been given sedatives, so we have to remember that. So for Scout here today, we want to start by hooking up. So the positioning to start the dog in is the right lateral recumbency. That's not always the position they need to be in. If the surgeon tells you to put them into another position, we absolutely wouldn't do that, but this is our standard. So I need to get over to this side here. So important to remember, we're newspapers in front of the dog. We look at animals normally from the front first. Newspaper over Christmas trees. So looking at my leads that I have here, so I have a red lead here. So this is going to be for the hind leg. I do not have a green lead here. So this is only 3 leads. So I'm not going to be attaching a green lead because I do not have one. So I'm going to start with the white lead, and I'm going to put it on the elbow up here on the right leg. Getting a good attachment there. And then black, because black writing goes on top of a white newspaper page generally. And doing the same thing here. There we go. And then we're going to be hooking up the red one. So the red one is going to be red lights on top of the Christmas trees. So we're going to be on the left hind leg. And just like so. So now what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to stretch her legs out. So we're stretching her legs out away from her, and we're going to watch the reading here. So you can see on the reading that we are getting Q or S complexes, and we're getting a P wave and an ST wave behind it. So what we missed, we should be adding alcohol to each one here, because we are getting the waves, but we're not getting the waves perfectly. So we always want to make sure we're adding alcohol, otherwise we can get 60-second interference. So we're going to again pull the legs out here, away from the dog, and wait for our readings. Good. So that's reading there. So what we want to make sure we're doing with the machine here, our machine doesn't do this, but typically speaking, what we would do is for 5 to 10 seconds each, we would be wanting to get the AV1, AV2, and AV3. Then we want to make sure that we are also, which are all reading 2, and then we also would want to make sure that we are getting the AV, our AVL, and AVF, which are all uni readings. So we would want to do each one of those for 5 to 10 seconds. Typically our settings on here should be 25 millimeters per second, because we do have a medium-sized dog here in front of us. And then we'd be able to print out our readings here, and when we're printing our readings out, we should be able to calculate the heart rate there as well. But we want to be making sure that we're not getting any abnormalities or inconsistencies between the P wave to the QRS or the QRS to the ST. So just looking at my sheet that I have here, so we've placed the animal in the proper positioning, placement of the ECG leads, proper lead placement, and then just discussing troubleshooting if an animal, if an abnormal reading caused by an artifact is evident. So a couple of things that we discussed was making sure that we do add alcohol to our clips here, to our leads, and we want to make sure that the alcohol is there, and we may need to actually add alcohol if we're going to be having her on an ECG for a long period of time. You may need to add additional alcohol, otherwise it won't necessarily read properly and you get the 60-second interference. We also want to make sure that the animal is not moving around a lot, because if the animal is moving around a lot, then we don't necessarily get the correct readings either, and we want to make sure that their legs are stretched out in front of them, and we want to make sure that they're be stretched out towards Dr. Jones there. Can you demonstrate that, Dr. Jones? Yep, just pull the legs that way. Perfect, that's exactly what we want to do. If the animal ends up moving around a lot, then we can give the animal a break and then start again, because we won't be getting accurate readings with an animal that's moving around a lot. So very important to remember that as well. If an animal is under sedation or under anesthetic, that can definitely interfere with the readings as well. So we need to consider the fact that a lot of our drugs that we use for sedation do decrease the heart rate. So we want to make notations of any time that we're giving an animal a sedation before an anesthetic. That's very important. And then if we are getting the 60-second interval interference, we can always take the clips off and then put the clips back on and just readjust. Another thing to note here is we have a metal table. So with the metal table can conduct electricity, so we want to make sure that the metal table is not actually touching the dog while we're doing an ECG, which is why we've got this blanket down on the table here, and it's in between the patient and the table. And then we also want to make sure that none of the clips are touching. If our clips are touching, then that can interfere with our readings as well. Good.